It had been 32 years since I last heard anyone call me Mom. The word had become a memory, something that lived in the corners of old photographs and dreams that faded with morning light. My name is Eleanor, and I live alone now, in a little house at the end of Willow Street. It's quiet here, too quiet sometimes, the kind of quiet that makes you talk to the kettle while it boils or hum to yourself while folding clothes. I've lived here since my husband, Arthur, passed away. The children in the neighborhood call me Granny Ellie, though I don't really have any grandchildren, at least not anymore. There used to be one boy, my boy, Michael. He was my only son, my pride, my laughter, my reason for breathing. But life has a way of turning joy into something fragile. He left when he was 20, after a fight, the kind of fight that starts over nothing and ends up breaking everything. I told him he was wasting his life, that his friends were bad for him, that he was going nowhere. He told me I didn't understand him, that I cared more about my reputation than his happiness. He walked out that night and never came back. I searched, I called, I wrote letters to his last address, I went to the police. But years passed and silence became my only answer. Some said he moved to another city. Others said he died on the streets. I never knew the truth. So I learned to live with the ache, the kind that never quite leaves but dulls just enough to let you breathe again. It was a cold evening in November when it happened. I had gone downtown to buy some yarn and groceries. The streets were busy with Christmas lights and people rushing home. I was waiting at the bus stop, holding my bag close, when I noticed him. A man sitting by the lamppost, wrapped in a torn blanket. His hair was matted, his beard thick, his clothes layered and dirty. He was holding a cardboard sign that said, "Hungry, please help." Something about him made me stop. Not pity, but recognition. Like my heart had flinched before my eyes could understand why. I reached into my purse, pulled out a few bills, and handed them to him. He looked up at me. His eyes were tired, bloodshot, but kind. And then he said it. "Thanks, Mom." My body froze. My breath stopped. My fingers went numb. I stared at him, really stared, and my world began to tilt. Because those eyes were his. The same deep green I had looked into when I held my baby for the first time. The same color that caught sunlight in a way I could never forget. "Michael," I whispered. The man's expression changed, a flicker of confusion, then something like pain. He blinked, looking at me as if trying to remember a dream. "Do you know me?" he asked quietly. I felt tears sting my eyes. "You called me Mom." He looked down, rubbing his forehead. I say that sometimes, to people who are kind." But his voice trembled when he said it, and I knew, in the deepest part of me, that this wasn't coincidence. I took a step closer. "What's your name?" He hesitated. I don't remember my full name. They just call me Mike." The world around me went silent. No cars, no people, no city sounds. Just me, standing in the cold, looking at the ghost of my past, sitting on a sidewalk. "Michael," I whispered. His expression changed, a flicker of confusion, then something like pain. He blinked, looking at me as if trying to remember a dream. He said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. You must be mistaken." But I wasn't. A mother knows her child, even when the world has changed his face. That night, I couldn't sleep. His eyes haunted me, those green eyes I had prayed to see again. I kept asking myself if grief had made me delusional, if time had tricked my memory, but something deeper told me the truth. I had found my son, and he didn't know me anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him sitting under that lamppost, his hands trembling as he clutched the blanket around him. The way he looked at me before turning away burned deep into my chest. By morning, I had made up my mind. I was going back. I didn't care how foolish it seemed. I didn't care if everyone said I was imagining things. When a mother knows, she knows. I packed a thermos of hot soup, a scarf, and an old photo of my son, the one taken when he was 18, his hair long and messy, that mischievous grin I used to scold and adore in equal measure. It had been 32 years since that picture was taken, but those eyes hadn't changed. The next day, I took the same bus back downtown. It was colder than before. The wind sliced through my coat. People hurried by, faces buried in scarves. When I reached the corner where I had seen him, the lamppost stood empty. My heart sank. I looked around, searching every face, every corner, every alley. I even asked a shopkeeper nearby if he'd seen the man who usually sat there. He shrugged. "Lots of them come and go, lady. There's a shelter down by the old church. Maybe he's there." The church. I hadn't stepped inside one since Michael's disappearance. I used to pray every day, and when no miracle came, I stopped. But now, maybe it was time to walk back inside. The church was quiet, its stained-glassed windows glowing softly with winter sunlight. The air smelled faintly of wax and dust. A few people sat scattered in the pews, mostly older men, some sleeping, others praying silently. And then, near the far corner, I saw him. Curled up on the pew, head resting against the wall, a tattered coat wrapped around him. He was asleep. My hands began to shake as I walked closer. The light from the window fell across his face, those same hollow cheeks, the same faint scar above his eyebrow, the one he got when he fell off his bike at 10 years old. My breath caught. I couldn't stop the tears this time. I sat beside him quietly and placed the scarf over his shoulders. He stirred slightly, murmuring something I couldn't catch. Then his hand moved, reaching for mine, like a reflex. It was rough, calloused, cold, but it was his. He woke suddenly, startled. "Who?" He blinked, recognizing me. "It's okay," I said softly. "It's me, the woman from yesterday." He frowned, squinting at me. "Why are you here?" I smiled through tears. "Because I couldn't stay away." He looked confused, uneasy. "You shouldn't waste your time on me, ma'am." "I'm not wasting time. I'm finding something I lost." He looked away, his jaw tightening. "I told you I'm not who you think I am." I took a deep breath, pulled out the old photograph, and placed it in his hands. "Then tell me," I whispered, "why do you look exactly like him?" He stared at the photo, silent, motionless. For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't react. Then his eyes widened, his lips parted slightly, and I saw something break inside him. I've seen this picture," he murmured. My heart leapt. "Where?" He looked up at me, his voice shaking. I don't know. Maybe in my dreams? Maybe? Or in my head? Sometimes I see things I can't explain." I reached out, touching his arm gently. "Michael, do you remember me at all?" He flinched at the name, his eyes filled with tears. "Michael. People used to call me that, a long time ago." It felt like the earth stopped spinning. "Then you are him."
I whispered. "You're my son." He shook his head violently. "No, my mother wouldn't have left me. She wouldn't." His words sliced through me like glass. "I didn't leave you," I said, my voice trembling. "You left home after we fought. I tried to find you, Michael, every day." He looked at me, torn, angry, afraid. "No one looked for me. No one came." "I did," I cried. "For years. I never stopped." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then, quietly, he said, "I don't remember. I don't remember much of anything. Just cold nights, shelters, faces I don't know. Sometimes a woman's voice calling my name." Tears poured down my face. That was me. I never stopped calling. I convinced him to come home with me that night, just for one meal, I said. He hesitated, but hunger and exhaustion won. When we reached the house, he looked around as if walking through a ghost story. He stopped by the hallway, staring at an old coat hanging on the rack. Arthur's coat. He touched it gently. "Whose is this?" "My husband's," I said softly. "He passed years ago." He nodded, silent again. I led him to the kitchen, warmed the soup, and watched as he ate, slowly, hesitantly, like someone afraid the food might vanish. I wanted to reach out and hold him, but I didn't. Not yet. When he finished, he looked up and whispered, "It smells like home here." My heart broke all over again. That night, after he fell asleep on the couch, I stood at the doorway watching him, the lines on his face, the faint scar, the way his chest rose and fell with every breath. My son, lost to the world, found again. But even as I watched, I knew this wasn't the end. He carried shadows I couldn't see, scars time had carved deep inside. Tomorrow I would ask questions. Tomorrow I would try to understand where he had been all those years. But tonight, for the first time in 30 decades, I allowed myself to whisper his name out loud. "Good night, my boy." And I swear, just before he turned in his sleep, he murmured back, almost too softly to hear, "Good night, Mom."
The morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, landing softly on Michael's face. For a moment, it felt like time had turned back, like I had woken up 30 years earlier, and my little boy was home again. But then reality returned. His hair was streaked with gray, his skin rough and weathered. He wasn't the same boy who had run out that door all those years ago. Life had carved its story into him. I brewed some tea and waited, pretending to busy myself in the kitchen. When he finally stirred and sat up, he looked disoriented, as if he didn't believe he was really there. "Did you sleep well?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Better than I have in years." I smiled. "There's more soup if you'd like." He interrupted quietly, his voice shaking. "You really think I'm him, don't you?" I froze. "I know you are." He looked down at his hands. "Then I need to tell you something, but I don't know if you'll want to hear it." My heart began to race. "Go on." He took a long breath. "I remember bits and pieces now. I wasn't supposed to. For a long time, I tried not to." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "The night I left home, I was angry. You remember, don't you?" I nodded slowly. "You wanted to move to the city. I told you it was too dangerous." "I thought you didn't believe in me," he said bitterly. "I left with some people I barely knew. They promised me a job, said I could start over." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. "What happened?" He stared into the distance, eyes unfocused. "It was a lie. They used me.
Made me work for months, no pay, no way out. When I tried to escape, they beat me and dumped me miles away. I barely survived. After that, I forgot who I was. I started using drugs, just to stop the pain. The name Michael felt like someone else's story. He looked at me, guilt, shame, and exhaustion tangled in his gaze. "I didn't want to come back," he whispered. "Not like that. I thought you'd hate me." My vision blurred with tears. "Hate you? Oh, Michael." I walked over and took his hand. "I never stopped praying for you, every single day." He blinked, his lips trembling. "Then why did it take me so long to find my way back?" "Because you weren't ready," I said softly. "You had to find yourself again first." For a long while, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy, sacred, like the air after a storm. Finally, he said, "There's more." I looked up. "More?" He nodded, his eyes filled with something like fear. "There was a man. He used to visit the shelter sometimes, bringing food. He said he knew me once, that he used to work for my father." My breath caught. "What was his name?" "Walter. He gave me an envelope, told me not to open it until I was ready. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a torn, weathered envelope, yellowed with age, sealed with tape that looked decades old. My husband's handwriting was across the front. To my son, if you ever find this." My knees went weak. Michael looked at me. "I didn't open it. I wanted to, but something told me it wasn't time." "Let's open it together," I whispered. He nodded. His fingers trembled as he tore the envelope. Inside was a single, folded letter. I took a deep breath and began to read aloud. "To my dearest boy, if you are reading this, it means life has taken you far from home, and I can't bring you back myself. Not a day goes by that your mother and I don't think of you. We may not have been perfect parents, but we loved you more than anything in this world. Whatever mistakes you've made, whatever pain you've endured, none of it matters now. You are our son, always have been, always will be. If you ever lose your way, follow the sound of her voice. She'll never stop calling you home." I couldn't finish. My voice broke halfway through. Michael sat silently, tears streaming down his face. He pressed the letter to his chest and whispered, "I heard him. I heard both of you, all these years." I reached out and pulled him into my arms, and for the first time in 30 years, I held my son again, not as the boy I lost, but as the man who found his way back. That night he stayed in his old room, dusty, untouched since he left. I sat outside his door, afraid to sleep, afraid it might all disappear come morning. But as I listened, I heard him humming softly, the same tune I used to sing when he was a child. And I knew then, some lost things aren't gone forever. They just take the long road home.
The next morning, the house felt alive again. For the first time in years, I made breakfast for two. The smell of toast and coffee filled the kitchen, and Michael sat at the table, quietly watching me as I moved around. His eyes were tired, but soft. The kind of softness that only comes after years of pain finally begin to loosen their grip. We didn't speak much at first. Words felt too fragile for what was happening between us. But sometimes silence can say what voices cannot. After breakfast, he went to sit on the porch. I joined him, wrapped in my old shawl. The air was cool and the morning light shimmered through the trees. He held the letter from his father in his hand,
reading it over and over as if trying to memorize every line. "I don't know how to start over," he said quietly. "You already have. You came home." He looked down, his jaw trembling. Home. I thought I'd lost it forever. "You can lose a house, Michael," I said softly, "but you can't lose the people who love you. Not if you keep them in your heart." He nodded slowly, tears gathering in his eyes. Then, after a long pause, he said, "There's something else, Mom." I turned toward him. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "Someone from that life, from the streets, might come looking for me. A man named Carter. I owed him once, and he never forgives debts." My stomach clenched. "Michael!" He shook his head. "Don't worry, I'm not the same man I was, but I had to tell you." That night, a storm rolled in. The wind howled through the trees, and the rain beat hard against the windows. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room, the old lamp flickering, clutching the photograph of my husband and me holding a baby, our Michael. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside. My heart froze. The door creaked open. Michael stood there, soaking wet. "He came," he whispered, "but he's gone now. He just wanted to see if I was really alive." He collapsed into a chair, trembling. He said I didn't owe him anymore. He said I'd paid enough. I wrapped a blanket around him and held him close. "It's over, son," I murmured. "It's truly over now." He nodded against my shoulder, his breath uneven. "I think I can finally rest." And for the first time, I believed him. Days turned into weeks. The leaves outside began to change, their colors burning with life before falling gently to the ground. Michael helped fix the old fence, repaired the shed, even planted a small garden in the backyard, the same place where he used to chase fireflies as a boy. Sometimes we talked about the years we lost. Other times we just sat quietly, watching the world heal itself one day at a time. One afternoon, he handed me a small wooden box. "Open it," he said. Inside were scraps of paper, notes, and sketches, fragments of his wandering years. Among them, a single photo, the two of us taken the summer before he ran away. I kept this with me, through everything. It reminded me who I was. Tears blurred my vision. I reached for his hand. "You never stopped being my son." He smiled faintly. "And you never stopped being my mom." That night, I lit a candle by the window, the same way I had every night for 30 years, praying he'd find his way home. But this time, I blew it out, because my prayer had already been answered. In the quiet darkness, with the moonlight soft on his face, I watched my son sleep peacefully in his old room. The pain, the years, the distance, all of it finally behind us. And as I closed my eyes, I whispered, "Welcome home, my boy."